This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to easily and efficiently build and manage your own website. I've made over 100 videos since my last Grass Type Hardcore Nuzlocke, but now it's finally time to take on Pokémon Platinum with nothing but Grass Type Pokémon. Though Grass types in Gen 4 aren't quite as useless as they were in Gen 3, Sinnoh is not a particularly welcoming place for our leafy friends. Many dangers await us on our journey, and making it through without being chopped up into itty-bitty bits will require elaborate strategies, grueling teamwork, and sheer dumb luck. Because in a Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints, it's dead forever. And since I can only catch Grass-type Pokemon, there's just 9 encounters in the entire game. The rest of the rules for this playthrough are shown here and in the description down below. But let's not beat around the bush any longer. The start to one of the hardest, most stressful monotype Nuzlockes of all time begins right now. My first encounter is the Sinnoh Grass-type starter Turtwig. Not only a phenomenal Pokemon, but also an absolute little bastard if I've ever seen one. I named my new bastard bestie Crab, and so begins our life as 2 bachelors on an adventure. But our bro trip is short-lived because on Route 204 we can catch a Budew named Pampus who officially makes us a crowd. It's okay, Crab, we'll always have hunting clowns in Jubilife City. By the time we get to the first gym badge against Rourke, Pampus has evolved into Roselia, so she just sucks all 3 of his rock types dry with a Mega Drain apiece. It's nice that this first gym is a gimme because it'll be a near constant uphill grind from here on out. Rourke seems stunned that he lost to a kid without any gym badges, which is pretty rich given that he's literally the first gym leader, but after I get over that needlessly rude comment, I make my way to Floroma Town where I can start getting encounters from honey trees. It takes a few tries, but eventually I catch a Burmy who I name Centipede. Centipede's not a grass type though. In fact, she's a bug type, aka grass type's one true enemy. Well, other than birds, fire, and frostbite. But with some painful level ups, Centipede is able to evolve into a Plant Cloak Wormadame. Easily the worst Wormadame form, but it's also the only one that's an eligible encounter, so it is what it is. And that's all the encounters we can get here, so off we go. Time for a fight against the second gym leader, Gardenia. She also fancies herself a garden ally, so it's time for some plant-on-plant violence. Fortunately, Centipede's a little bit of a cannibal, and a hungry one at that. With Bug Bite, she chows through her fellow grass types like she's auditioning for the role of the Winklevoss twins. Roserade makes things a little harder by using Stun Spore, but since she only has Poison Sting for meaningful damage, and Centipede is moderately bulky with a held Oranberry, we're able to take her and Gardenia's Cherim out without too much of a hassle. That wins us an easy second gym badge. Watching Gardenia's Cherim getting eaten alive reminds me that I could have gotten a Cherubi of my own from a honey tree already, so I fixed that oversight immediately and welcomed Bermuda onto the team. Hey, what's with the little ball attached to Cherubi's head? Like, it's got a face, so it's gotta be alive, right? Is this some sort of weird parasitic twin thing? The ball seems to completely disappear when Cherubi evolves. So, by evolving Cherubi, are we willingly killing the life of this sentient parasite? Is that not immoral? Or I mean, then again, what kind of life is it to be used as a nutrient sac, cognizant enough to know you're suffering, but not cognizant enough to do anything about it? Is evolution then actually the only merciful thing that one can do in this situation to finally provide a sweet release from a life filled with nothing but unimaginable pain and abject horror? Well, whatever, I've got other things to worry about for now, like the fight against Commander Jupiter in the Eterna Galactic building. She leads with a Zubat, and I lead with Crab, hoping that the Zubat will just use Toxic, activating our held Pecha Berry. Unfortunately, Zubat opts for a more aggressive strategy and hits my bulky Tortoise with a super effective wing attack. To make matters worse, Zubat survives return with a single HP, letting her nail Crab with another wing attack before going down. This means that Crab is below half health as Skuntank comes in. I'm scared that Crab is dead to a potential critical hit, so I switch to Centipede. Taking out Pepe Le Pew is going to be up to her. Things start out really well as Skuntank misses a poison gas and Centipede eats Skuntank's citrus berry with a bug bite, getting us back to almost full HP. On the next turn, Skuntank goes for a Screech, and Centipede takes the opportunity to fire off a critical hit bug bite. This is going great, but with the defense drop from Screech, I decide to switch out to Bermuda for his debut battle. Skuntank just uses Smokescreen, which means it was safe to stay in for at least one turn, but there's no way to know that in the moment. A switch back to Centipede on a Night Slash means that we're now risking a critical hit on the following turn. There's no crit though, so we get off another Bug Bite, bringing Skuntank into the red. But now we gotta find a way to survive a hit and take out her last tick of HP. I decide that my best bet is to bring in Pampus, who can hopefully outspeed and finish off Skuntank on the following turn. But she doesn't even get the chance, as she tragically falls to a critical hit Night Slash. In hindsight, I don't think Pampus would have even outsped Skuntank anyways, but losing a Pokemon to a critical hit is always rough. I bring in Bermuda to survive a Night Slash and finish up the battle, but Magical Leaf just straight up doesn't kill Skuntank, meaning that Bermuda follows Pampus to his grave. After that, I'm convinced that this is now a wipe. But Crab does end up surviving a Night Slash, which lets him finally kill Skuntank with a return. So the battle's won, but at what cost? 2 promising young lives snuffed out before they were able to blossom into their full potential. With so few encounters in this run, and the hardest challenges still ahead, I decide that it's smart to just pull the plug on Attempt 1 now. Fortunately, it's not too much of an ordeal to get back to Jupiter, which will hopefully go a little bit better this time around. To skew the odds in my favor, I get a few more levels on my Pokemon, and I also decide to evolve Bermuda too, aka Bertuda, into Cherrim at level 25. With a bit more firepower, my Garden Warriors should be better equipped for this fight. Crab 2, aka Crabtube. Okay, that one doesn't really work. But Crab still leaves Zubat with a sliver, so I switch to Bertuda thinking that she'll take less damage from Zubat's wing attack than from Skuntank's Night Slash. Since Bertuda's now in as Skuntank comes out, we can tank a Night Slash, which does exactly 1 more HP than Zubat's wing attack, and then set up a Leech Seed. Since Centipede learns Protect by level up, the Leech Seed lets her deal with Skuntank far more easily. So while Centipede is chowing down on this heaping serving of skunk, you should chew on this. Did you know that doesn't matter % of viewers aren't subscribed to the channel? It really does help me out a ton if you click that subscribe button. Plus, if Baby Worm grows larger than Mommy Worm, then the ancient ritual will be complete,
and the old gods will be awakened from their slumber for the first time in over 2 millennia, bringing about the new age of mankind.
With Jupiter defeated, we're pretty close to the level cap now, so I gotta do my best to avoid as many optional trainers as possible, which I'm categorically terrible at, but I am able to successfully make it to Hearthome City with everyone still under the level cap. And by talking to BB, I can get my 5th team member, an Eevee. A quick trip back to the Mossy Rock in the Eterna Forest evolves Kentucky Bluegrass into Leafeon. I like that for a few generations, Game Freak kept putting mossy rocks in every single new region, but then in Generation 8, they were just like, f*** it. Leafeon evolves with a Leaf Stone now. In hindsight, that makes a lot of sense. Our bad. Leafeon's my favorite evolution, so I'm glad to finally get the chance to use him in a Nuzlocke. Unfortunately, his Generation 4 level up moveset leaves a lot to be desired. Get it? Leaves a lot to be desired? Leafeon does have phenomenal attack, but doesn't actually learn Leaf Blade until level 70 freaking 1. Who is that for? Grovyle learns Leaf Blade at level 29, so someone at Game Freak must just have a poster in their cubicle that says "Screw Leafeon" on it. I mean, that's still better than the guy who has a similar poster for Vaporeon. That guy is a freak. Nevertheless, at least KBG has a phenomenal physical defense stat, made even stronger by his relaxed nature. Some physical bulk is a welcome addition to this team, though it won't actually be all that relevant for the fight against Fantina. Like with most 3rd gym leaders, Fantina can be a real tough nut to crack without the proper encounters. Her Mismagius, in particular, is the toughest nut. Her Liduskull, though, she goes down to 2 bites from Crab. The first one causes a lucky flinch, so we don't even need to worry about being burned, which is a great start. Mismagius skips the queue to come in next, so I decide to stay in and hit a super effective bite. It's not ideal to activate Mismagius' Citrus Berry here, because that would have been a yummy snack for the always hungry Centipede, who will be our main answer into this beast of a ghost type. Despite Centipede having fairly respectable special defense, complemented by her sassy nature, Shadow Ball still hits pretty hard. Fortunately, with some switches, I can bring Bertuda back in and risk her to a critical hit in order to set up a Leech Seed. The gamble pays off, letting Centipede come back in and slowly take out Mismagius. I do still have to risk her to a handful of critical hits, which is never a good strategy. You can only avoid critical hits for so long, but at least for now, the Mismagius is taken care of. Fantina's Haunter is physical, and since Haunter has an atrocious attack stat, Pampus can safely take her out with Leech Seed and Giga Drains despite having truly abysmal physical defense. That wins us a pretty scary third gym badge. But Fantina's not even the spookiest thing that Hearthome City has to offer. That would be my rival Mower and his team that features two very problematic Pokemon. The first is Staravia. Don't let his Belgian comic hairdo deceive you. This thing is a huge issue. With Double Team, Endeavor, Quick Attack, and Wing Attack, Staravia has the potential to devastate all 5 of my grass types if we can't take him out quickly. Thanks to his bulk, KBG doesn't take too much damage from wing attacks, but after Staravia's Intimidate, it'd take way too long to take him out, and we'd be running the risk of Staravia setting up with Double Team or critting with a few wing attacks. So I decide that my only real play is to lead with Bertuda. With a held Miracle Seed, which she was fortunately holding when we caught her, Bertuda can two-shot the frail bird with 2 not very effective magical leaves. And she's bulky enough to always survive 1 critical hit wing attack. But Staravia actually ends up doing the best thing he possibly could and just goes for Double Team. This means Bertuda is at full HP as she fires off her second magical leaf, which never misses. Once again, a great start. Mower's Monferno comes in second, but Bertuda is able to safely tank 1 Flame Wheel, and a 90 base power Petal Dance will be enough to two-shot the frail chimp. This is a little risky because Petal Dance locks you in for 2 to 3 turns, but Mower's remaining 2 Pokemon aren't particularly threatening. Plus, the alternative is to switch to KBG or Crab and tank some Flame Wheels, which runs the risk of getting crit and or burned. So Bertuda it is. Petal Dance does great damage into Mower's Fiery Primeape, who then retaliates with a Flame Wheel, and a crit leaves Bertuda with just 11 HP. But before I can even let out a sigh of relief, the next turn begins as Bertuda's trapped in with Petal Dance, and Monferno snipes down my flower with a priority Mach Punch. This is the first and last time I will ever use Petal Dance in this Nuzlocke. I am crushed. Bertuda was only on the team for a short time, but she had so much potential. It's a devastating loss, though given the resources I had, there's really not much I could have done to play around that critical hit. It's a tough hand to be dealt, but we've got to keep playing the game, fighting the fight. The only way to avenge Bertuda's death is to take this run all the way to the Hall of Fame. There will be no more deaths on my watch. With Crab closing out the battle against Mower, we can make our way to Veilstone City, which is great, because the game corner, the department store, and the surrounding routes all have really valuable TMs and items that will make my travels a bit easier, especially when it's time to once again face off against Mower. It's just a shame that we couldn't get to all this stuff before losing Bertuda. But we gotta focus up, because it's time for my team's next challenge. Black Belt Jeffrey. Jeffrey is the real deal. This guy only has 1 Pokemon, but it's a Heracross that knows Aerial Ace and Counter. The combination of those 2 moves has the potential to kill every single one of my Pokemon with a bit of bad luck. Now, as you can see here, Jeffrey is a turner, which means that if I'm a bit lucky, it's possible that I could completely avoid him on my way to Maylene. I've also heard that you can do some speedrunner manipulation thing to guarantee that you avoid turners. But I don't know how to do that, and learning new things is scary. That's why I'm playing a 15-year-old Pokemon game. So, instead of learning, it's time to bring in some backup. It's off to the Great Marsh in Pastoria City where I can catch 3 more grass types. First is a Tangela named Bluestem. That's another physically bulky mon on the team, and this one's sporting a banger pair of bright red boots. Second is a Carnivine named Fescue, which is definitely a Grass-type Pokemon that definitely learns many Grass-type moves, among many other moves that are useful and good. Yes, Carnivine is truly a Pokemon worthy of its extreme rarity. The third and final new Grass-type is a Tropius who I named Zebra, and she's the reason why we made this entire trek. With solid bulk and her stab flying type moves, Zebra will be the perfect answer into Jeffrey's Heracross. This plan is foolproof. I have done way too many of these Nuzlockes for this to still happen to me. I mean, sure, it sucks that while grinding up against Wild Geodude, I missed a 95% accurate Razor Leaf on the exact turn that Geodude decided that life as a legless rock monster was too much to handle. But there's really no excuse for this. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me. And now Zebra is dead. The silver lining is that on the way to Pastoria City, I found the TM for Aerial Ace and discovered that I can teach it to KBG, which will definitely one-shot Jeffrey's Heracross with no problem. So it's Leafeon to the rescue. Or it would be if I wasn't the greatest ninja in Sinnoh. I would say crisis averted, but since Zebra's guts are still splattered across all 4 walls of Ruined Maniac Cave, that'd probably be in poor taste. Anyway, since the level cap of 32 lets Crab evolve into Torterra and learn Earthquake, we easily clear through Maylene's 3 fighting types, netting us a quick 4th gym badge. Nothing like a quick and dirty Earthquake sweep to get you in the mood for a sponsorship segue. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is an online platform that helps you build and manage your own website, whether that's an online store for your business or a personal blog for your thoughts. Designing a website can be really difficult without the proper resources and support, but with Squarespace's all-in-one platform, it's quick and painless to easily design professional and polished websites. For example, with the help of their customizable templates, I created poppyhg.com, the one and only destination to find curated pictures of my corgi puppy Poppy. Look at her lying in that field of grass. That's just like the Pokemon that we're using in this video. See, in the business, they call that connecting the sponsorship to the content in the video to make it more relatable to the viewer. I'm so good at this. Squarespace also has a ton of other really useful features, like analytic information about the traffic of your website, the ability to add and play embedded videos directly on your website, and Squarespace member areas, which can be used to connect with audiences and create exclusive members-only content. So if you're looking to start a website for your business or hobby, then you should absolutely check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your website, you can use my custom link to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to the challenge. Before taking on Crash or Wake for badge number 5, there's another fight against Mower, though this one is much easier than the previous fight in Hearthome thanks to all the additional team members and items we've accrued since then. Bluestem has evolved into Tangrowth, which is an unbelievably phenomenal Pokemon as long as you keep it away from special attacks. He's able to easily deal with Mower's Staravia with a single super effective Shockwave. And then KBG can now switch in on a Flame Wheel and kill Monferno with a super effective Dig. TMs really make the world go round, but since they aren't reusable in Generation 4 and most of them can only be found once, I'm gonna need to be really careful about managing my Pokemon's movesets for the rest of this playthrough. Once those moves are gone, there's no getting them back. Bluestem continues to show his prowess against Crash or Wake in his water types. The only one of his 3 Pokemon that's a potential issue is Floatzel because he knows Ice Fang. So many Pokemon in this game know Ice Fang. It's pretty infuriating. Fortunately, Bluestem is very bulky, so even though Floatzel does get a flinch with his first Ice Fang, we're able to win the matchup by staying healthy with Mega Drain and Shell Bell Recovery. Nah, I'm just kidding. I obviously get frozen by a 3rd Ice Fang. This really seems to be happening to me a lot recently. It's, not fun. I mean, fortunately, I can switch to KBG, who's able to survive 2 Ice Fangs, neither of which freezes, crits, or flinches. Small miracle. So, against impossible odds, I've somehow managed to successfully beat the Water-type gym leader in my Grass-type monologue. But I guess I'd rather get the bad luck out of the way here, because if I get that type of RNG against any of the next 7 or so boss battles, I'm gonna be looking at a wipe. The first of these boss battles is the first of 3 fights against the Team Galactic boss Cyrus, who was concocted in a lab to have the most anti-grass type team imaginable. At least for now, none of his Pokemon are fully evolved. By giving KBG a held Kelpsie Berry, he can use Natural Gift to one-shot his Sneasel with a 70 base power quad effective fighting type move. Natural Gift is going to be a recurring strategy from here on out. Golbat comes in second, so it's time to just use pure brute force with Return. 2 hits are enough to kill Golbat, as a non-critical hit Air Cutter does just shy of 50%. Before taking the kill, I decide to go for Synthesis on the off chance that Golbat misses his 95% accurate move. Happens more than you think. But instead, he just immediately gets a critical hit, so I guess it's time to kill the bat with a Return, leaving Cyrus with just his Murkrow that knows Drill Peck, which is scary. we're gonna need to risk 2 crits as Bluestem comes in. Fortunately, neither of Murkrow's drill pecks crit, letting Bluestem nail Murkrow with a hidden power, which is electric type and has 64 base power, thereby making it ever so slightly stronger than Shockwave. I lucked out on Bluestem having a pretty useful hidden power type, but unfortunately it doesn't make a difference here because Murkrow survives with just a sliver. So that means it's time to risk more crits, this time with Crab. Once again, RNGesus grants me safe passage and Crab is able to take out Murkrow, but that was just the first Cyrus fight before he even has fully evolved Pokemon. I can't keep risking that many critical hits every battle. My strategies need to get better, or I will lose this run. No one stays that lucky forever. We've got a slew of other problematic boss fights before our next brush with Cyrus though. The first is the Canalave City battle against Mower. His Pokemon are now fully evolved, and he also took a page out of Black Belt Jeffrey's playbook and picked up a Heracross. But I've been dreading this fight for a long while now, so I've had plenty of time to think it through. Against his lead Staraptor, I use Bluestem, who more or less shrugs off an Aerial Ace, and then retaliates with a Choice Specs boosted Shockwave for the one-shot. That brings in Mower's new Heracross, so it's off to KBG on another Aerial Ace. But back at you, buddy. Mine's a bit more effective than yours. With Heracross down, Infernape is third, but thanks to a held Expert Belt, a Dig is just enough to get the one-shot. Mower's Roserade and Ice Fangless Floatzel are no problem, so that's a perfectly executed dub over arguably the hardest rival fight in the game. Byron, believe it or not, is not one of the 7 scary boss fights that I mentioned. His Steelix does know Ice Fang, and I do have to be a little careful to play around Metal Burst from Bastiodon after he sets up with Iron Defense, but it's ultimately a pretty easy fight, and a nice respite from dealing with the non-stop barrage of super effective hits. Team Galactic and their endless supply of Golbats are particularly draining, but fortunately we're about to get a very useful encounter to deal with flying types. Before that though, I do detour to Iron Island and pick up a Shiny Stone, which I use to finally evolve Pampus into Roserade. He's been pretty dormant since the early game, but with his newfound power and speed, he'll be back in the spotlight soon enough. As we make our way to Snow Point City, my team welcomes the final encounter of the run, a Snover named Buffalo. Rather frustratingly, he's got a minus speed nature and also a speed IV of 4, so maxing out his speed EVs and making him into a moderately fast blizzard spammer is no longer the brilliant answer to flying types that I expected it to be. A little less sass and a bit more timidness wouldn't kill you, Buffalo, but we'll have to work with what we've got. Against Candace, things are looking a little bleak. Thanks to his relaxed nature and a speed IV of 8, KBG isn't fast enough to outspeed Candace's Sneasel or Frostlass, which based on how the AI is coded, should be the first 2 Pokemon to come out. Blizzard obviously does nasty damage to all of my Pokemon not named Buffalo, and using him would set up Hail and give Frostlass her precious Snow Cloak ability as well as perfectly accurate Blizzards. This Frostlass is already an agent of RNG Chaos. With even a little bit of bad luck, she'll sweep my entire team. So I need a plan that's RNG proof, which is much easier said than done. But I think I have one figured out. As Candace leads with her Sneasel, I lead with Crab. It's a bit unconventional to lead a Grass Ground type into the Ice type Gym Leader, but Crab needs to set up a Stealth Rock here. And with the held Yachi Berry to have the power of super effective Ice type moves, he's very safe to even a critical hit from Sneasel's only Ice type move, Ice Shard. So next up is a switch to Bluestem, who's so bulky that Sneasel would need to get multiple critical hits with Ice Shard for this to be a problem. Bluestem sets up a Sunny Day, which activates his Chlorophyll ability, thereby doubling his speed. Now this obviously doesn't matter for outspeeding Sneasel since Ice Shard has priority, but it does let Bluestem fire off a 1-turn Solar Beam, which cleanly kills Sneasel on the following turn. That brings in Frostlass, who takes 25% from the Stealth Rock set up by Crab immediately. And guess what that does? It puts the Frosty Lady right in the range to be taken out by a single Solar Beam 100% of the time. That's checkmate, Candace, because Piloswine goes down to a single Giga Drain, and even though her Abomasnow gets rid of the sun and sets up Hail, Bluestem still outspeeds and gets a clean one-shot with a 70 base power Fire-type natural gift off of a held Bluckberry. That is the 7th gym badge obtained. It feels pretty great to crack that Candace fight, but it's back to the drawing board as we get ready for the next 2 showdowns against Cyrus. Well, actually, the second showdown is pretty simple. He leads with his Sneasel, which can be one-shot by Brick Break from Buffalo. Crobat comes in second, so I can switch to Pampus, who has a Koba Berry to ensure a moderately safe switch-in, though a critical hit Poison Fang with Hail Chip looks like it would have cut things real close. Cyrus's Crobat has a minus speed nature, so with a couple of extra levels, Pampus can outspeed and one-shot him with a Choice Specs Weather Ball that's now a 100 base power Ice type move on account of Buffalo's Snow Warning ability setting up permanent hail. The synergy between Pampus and Buffalo here is actually really sick. Honchkrow also falls to a Weather Ball, so that wins us round 2 against Cyrus. But this cute little Snow Warning Weather Ball combo won't work against Cyrus's team in the Distortion world because he now leads with Houndoom, has evolved his Sneasel into a Weavile with X-Scissor, and also has a very scary Gyarados. And I need to bring a Bibarel with Surf in order to actually get through the Distortion world, so I can't even use a full team of 6 Pokemon. This is, without a doubt, one of the hardest fights I've ever come across in a Nuzlocke of a vanilla Pokemon game. I spent hours trying to figure out how to win this fight without risking any crits or burns or, God forbid, another freeze. It's seemingly impossible with my team and their current stats, but I do at least find a strat that should minimize the amount of bad RNG that I need to avoid. The rest is up to our Lord and Savior. As Cyrus leads with Houndoom, I lead with Buffalo. His only job is to set up the Hail for Chip and Weather Balls later on. KBG comes in next, and here's where we need a little bit of luck. An Occa Berry means that we'll survive a Flamethrower, but a crit or a burn would be an absolute disaster. Thankfully, neither occurs, and a Dig is able to take out Houndoom on the following turn. That brings in Crobat, so it's off to Pampus, and time to dodge another crit. Nice. The crit alone wouldn't have killed, but Hail Chip would have done us in, and then we'd be totally screwed. But with Pampus just below 50% here, he's free to kill Crobat with a Weather Ball. And since Honchkrow comes in 4th, he goes down to a Weather Ball as well. But now it's Weavile time, aka time to dodge one more crit. Buffalo comes in on a nasty Ice Punch, but since it doesn't crit, we're in the clear. Weavile then goes for an X-Scissor, which does crit, but our Tanga Berry keeps Buffalo safe and lets him get a clean one-shot with a Brick Break. Always play around the critical hit, when you can. Gyarados is last, so it's off to Blue Stem. He does know Ice Fang, so this technically still isn't over, but I did make sure to give Blue Stem a Lumberry just in case of another Rogue Freeze. That doesn't happen though, and neither does a Flinch or multiple crits, so with a Hidden Power Electric, Blue Stem knocks out Gyarados and nets us a strategic win against Cyrus. What an absolute relief. With the world saved, I can now focus my attention on the Pokemon League. Sure, there's still a fight against Volkner for the 8th gym badge, but by setting up with Swords Dance and Rock Polish against his lead Jolteon, Crab can sweep through his entire team with Earthquake. A small break after Cyrus and before the Pokemon League is welcome, because the Elite Four is really scary. Aaron and his bug types aren't great since bugs eat grass types. Bertha and her ground types are actually fine, though Glysaur of course has Ice Fang because why wouldn't she? Then it's Flint with fire types. Yikes. Following that is Lucian and his psychic types, which are just generally really strong, and when you cap it off with Cynthia, who can hit grass types for super effective damage with 5 of her 6 Pokemon, we've got a pretty tough endgame to get through. There is also a final mower fight, but at this point I've got him pretty much figured out. In fact, by getting close to the level cap with Pampus, we can actually plow through Mower's most problematic Pokemon with Choice Spec Sludge Bombs. Now, I did kind of grossly underestimate how much damage Snorlax would do to Buffalo with Body Slam, so I might have had to risk a critical hit here, but once again I was shown mercy. Never underestimate Snorlax though, kids. With that, here's the final team, all leveled up to level 59 to match the level of Lucian's Gallade. As you can see, it's the usual suspects that we've been using since the beginning of the playthrough, with one notable exception. Centipede is taking a seat on the bench, and in her place is Fescue the Carnivine. Up until this point, Fescue has been used as literally nothing else but an experience sink. She sits in the back of the party holding an XP share, which lets the rest of the team get closer to the level cap for boss battles between gym leaders without fear of overleveling. In a way, I guess she's been invaluable, but that's nothing compared to what we have in store for her soon. One way or another, the end of the challenge is near. Let's do this. First up, Aaron. If it wasn't for the level advantage, this battle would be extremely difficult. Even with the level advantage though, it took a while to crack this fight, especially since his Leedian Mega threatens with super effective Air Slash and Bug Buzz into most of my Pokemon. Fortunately, with nearly max speed EVs, Blue Stem is able to outspeed our low-leveled enemy and kill him with a quad-effective Ancient Power. This actually ends up giving Blue Stem the 10% Omni boost, but that ultimately doesn't really change anything. Even without the Omni boost, we're free to take out the Vespiquen that comes in second, and the Caesar that comes in third would have still gone down to a Bluckberry boosted natural gift. Fourth is Heracross, so now we gotta switch out to KGB, just like we planned. With a Tangaberry, he's guaranteed to tank even a critical hit Megahorn. And then, a single Aerial Ace puts the last Heracross of the run in his grave. That just leaves Aeron with his definitely bug-type Drapion. I switched to Crab, who comes in on a Cross Poison. I kinda wanted that to poison so that Drapion's follow-up Ice Fang can't freeze, but since it doesn't, we're at the whims of one last Freeze Flinch dodge, as a Yachi Berry ensures we survive. Sorry Drapion, better luck next time. And Earthquake wins us the fight against the first member of the Elite Four. Bertha's next, and her only moderately problematic Pokemon is that Glysaur we mentioned, since she has Ice Fang and only takes neutral damage from Grass-type attacks. But by setting up the Sun with Blue Stem against Bertha's lead Whiscash, we can take out Glysaur with a Miracle Seed boosted one-turn Solar Beam. Everyone else goes down in one shot as well, which gets us a quick and easy victory. But next is Flint and his fire types, and this is either going to be a brisk stroll through the rain or a total disaster. Pampus can set up Rain Dance against Flint's lead Houndoom, which will turn Weather Ball into a 100 base power water move. That's enough to sweep through his entire team, and it'll also have the power of Houndoom's Flamethrower, ensuring that Pampus survives the first turn. However, if the Flamethrower crits, or burns, or both, we're in a lot of trouble. Even if the Flamethrower isn't enough to kill Pampus on its own, it will do enough damage for Flareon to see the kill with a priority quick attack. I could get around this by giving Pampus a Citrus Berry or an Occa Berry, but he needs to be holding a Damp Rock to ensure that the rain stays up for long enough to kill all of Flint's Pokemon. So all we can do is hope. Pampus holds, and so the battle is won. Every single fire type gets outsped and washed away, leaving just one Elite Four member left, Lucian, which means it's time for a setup sweep. He leads with Mr. Mime, and I lead with Crab. Mr. Mime goes for Light Screen on turn 1, and I set up a Rock Polish. With the speed advantage, I can now set up a Swords Dance, but Mr. Mime responds with a Reflect, so now I'm going to need to go for a second one. As I do, Mr. Mime switches to offense and nails Crab with a Psychic. It does massive damage thanks to a crit, but what's worse is that it also gets the special defense drop. So now, even if Crab goes for a Synthesis here, another critical hit will kill him from full HP. I have no choice but to just take out Mr. Mime with a Crunch here. For now, things are fine because Espeon comes in second and just falls to another Crunch. But then third is Bronzong, and here's where things get a little dicey. Thanks to the special defense drop, a critical hit Psychic from this range will just kill Crab. But I can't afford to use Synthesis because Bronzong could just use Calm Mind. So all I can do is use Crunch and hope that another crit isn't coming my way. Thankfully, Lucian opts for Calm Mind. Very greedy. With that, Reflect wears off, so a second Crunch finishes off Bronzong, and then the physically frail Alakazam and Gallade both fall to a single Crunch apiece, winning us the battle against the final member of the Elite Four. So now, it's Cynthia time, the Pokemon champion synonymous with fear and death. She's got a scary team, but so do we, and unlike her, we're ready to do whatever it takes. One last time for Bertuda, and I guess also for Zebra, let's do this. Cynthia leads with her Spiritomb, and I lead with Buffalo the Wintry Sasquatch. He's got just two jobs, to set up Hail and kick some Spiritomb ass, and he just set up Hail. Blizzard does well over 50% as Spiritomb retaliates with a Silver Wind. I hold my breath to see if she gets the Omni Boost, but she doesn't. So Buffalo seals her Icy Fate with one last Blizzard. But unfortunately, Buffalo actually has a third job, and that's to die. Lucario comes in, and I just can't risk him getting a crit as we switch to Crab. So, with a military salute and a lone tear down my cheek, I have Buffalo fire off a priority Ice Shard for some admittedly meaningless damage. Then, an Aurasphere brings down our sassy giant. Just as planned, Crab comes in to replace Buffalo. An Aurasphere does a solid chunk of damage, but then Crab uses Earthquake to take out Lucario in one fell swoop. Next up, Togekiss, and this is one scary plane-shaped bird thing. The first thing we do is use Protect for some Hail Chip, and then it's time for another sack. This time, it's Blue Stem on the chopping block. He comes in on an air slash, and despite holding a Koba Berry, takes a massive amount of damage from a non-critical hit air slash. That is disgusting. Blue Stem does survive, which lets us get a little bit more hail chip, but like Buffalo before him, he too falls. That's 2 Titans down so that a third can thrive. It's the harsh reality of Nuzlockes, but they knew what they signed up for, and Pampus is about to do them proud. With the hail set up by Buffalo and the safe switch granted by Blue Stem, he comes in and eviscerates Togekiss with an Ice-type Weather Ball. Even with the choice specs, Togekiss is so bulky that we did need those few ticks of hail chip to ensure the KO. Garchomp comes in next, but we need no chip for this one. A Weather Ball guarantees a clean kill, regardless of the critical hit. Cynthia's Roserade is 5th, but this cheap imitation is no match for Pampus, who nets his 3rd kill of the match in as many turns, and leaves Cynthia with one last Pokemon, her Milotic. But it's time for Pampus to bow out, for this kill has been promised to another. Someone who's waited patiently in the shadows, someone who has been pushed aside and mocked, ridiculed, deemed worthless, and never given a chance to prove otherwise. Well, Fescue, it's now or never. She comes in on a wasted Mirror Coat from Milotic. Fescue's been trained to take a hit, and with a held Yachi Berry, she would have been able to survive 2 Ice Beams. But now, barring a crit or a freeze, she should be safe to fire off a Power Whip. Here's your shot, Fescue. Take it. And just like that, Fescue takes out Cynthia's Milotic, winning us not just the battle, but the entire run. It's been a while since a monotype Nuzlocke has forced me to think that hard about strategies for different battles, and I really had a lot of fun doing it. I see a lot of comments about how doing calcs and coming up with RNG-proof strategies takes the fun out of Nuzlockes, and that's a perfectly fine opinion to have, but I could not disagree with it more. For me, the fun of doing these types of Nuzlockes is to solve puzzles, to crack the code and find a way to beat a seemingly impossible battle with as close to a 100% success rate as possible. I personally find that so much more rewarding than just hoping that you get lucky or brute forcing it with repeated attempts. Almost anything is possible if you get lucky and try enough times. For me, the real fun of these harder challenges is the planning and execution of my strategies, and this challenge really scratched that itch. But anyways, as always, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching, it'd be great if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Or don't, I don't know. But I do know that you should follow me on Twitter and Twitch to keep up with streams of my future challenges. You should also subscribe to my highlights channel to get highlights of the challenge I'm currently streaming before it's cut down to a video on the main channel. And you should consider subscribing to my Patreon, which is the best way to directly support the channel and comes with bonus content and early video access. The links to everything are in the description below. Stay tuned for more Nuzlocke videos, and until then, remember to always, always, always play around the critical hit.